What's up, everybody? This is page 419, and we're going to finish out lesson 2 of this topic, talking about the properties of quadrilaterals. And in this lesson, I have a very, I think it's kind of a challenging game-like feel. It reminds me actually of that word game that's out, all the rage right now, dating this video, Wordle. I'm going to call this this one I just made a name Quadle, right? So in that, it's like where you have to guess what sort of word, or in this case, what sort of quadrilateral that you might have, and then what are some good guesses that you can make in order to help determine like what the other person is thinking, or what like I might be thinking if you're playing this Quadle game with me as well. So here we go. Let's go ahead and address the question of what's on the page. Mr. King said he was thinking of a quadrilateral and wanted his students to name the quadrilateral. He said he would answer a few yes or no questions to give them a hint. What questions would you ask Mr. King? So it's like you're guessing what that actual quadrilateral is, and you need to guess very intelligently. So maybe one of your guesses to figure out what the quadrilateral is does the quadrilateral have 4 right angles? I mean, a yes tells you that it is a rectangle or a square, and a no would be not a rectangle, not a square, because those are guaranteeing that we have. It's a very good restrictive guess. And most of the time, people think of rectangles or squares as quadrilateral shapes. Okay, here's the next one, quadrilateral. Does your quadrilateral have 2 pairs of parallel sides? I mean, if it does, now you're looking at all parallelograms. And all parallelograms could be rectangles, squares, rhombuses, or just a parallelogram in general, but you get rid of trapezoids, kites, and then other just random quadrilaterals with no other characteristics to them. So yeah, we definitely do. I wrote that in the wrong spot. Sorry, you wrote that too, didn't you? Yeah. Should have skipped forward in the video. What are you doing watching these things? Is there exactly 1 pair of parallel sides? That's a smart question, because if you know that you have a no answer to this one, then maybe you have a trapezoid. Maybe they're thinking of a trapezoid. In a trapezoid, there's only 1 pair of parallel sides. Are all 4 sides congruent? If you get a parallelogram shape and you have 4 right angles, then you're done. No, you're not. That's a rectangle. So to go just one extra level of clarity, are all 4 sides congruent? Those are squares and rhombuses, or rhombi. Okay, next up, are the 2 diagonals congruent? Great question. Shows that you have more intelligence than, a 3rd grader who's learning about shapes and being reminded that there are 4 corners on a rectangle. You knew that. You already knew that. But were you thinking that the diagonals were congruent? Because if the diagonals are congruent, you might have an isosceles trapezoid, or you might have a rectangle, or a square. Are the 2 diagonals perpendicular? See, these are good questions. These are the ones that make people think, checkmate, figured it out, what's going on. Are the 2 diagonals perpendicular? Those are squares, because squares are always with that one. Rhombuses, and maybe even a kite. In those 3 different shapes, you might have identified the quadrilateral that Mr. King has. Is exactly 1 pair of opposite sides, or no, opposite angles congruent? That happens only in kites. And I guess another question, as I think about it too, this is exactly 1 pair of opposite angles congruent. We could say are adjacent. I don't want to say base angles, but I want to trick them into thinking base angles. So I'm going to say it this way. Are adjacent angles congruent? And maybe there's a better way to word that question, but the reason we want to ask it kind of is like the one right before it. Is there exactly 1 pair of opposite angles congruent? Well, that's a kite. That's only a kite. Ooh, a rhombus. A rhombus is a special. Nah, a rhombus has 2. Can't be a rhombus. Are adjacent angles congruent? I'm really trying to force them to say they have an isosceles trapezoid. Or maybe a rectangle, or maybe a square. But I could maybe at least identify, is it possible for, an isosceles trapezoid to be the quadrilateral, and get it in fewest number of guesses, like the word Quadle says, right? You want to win with 1 guess or 2 guesses, 1 question and a guess. Okay, what's the fewest number of questions that you could ask Mr. King to be sure you know the correct answer? And let's just suppose my quadrilateral is a rectangle, right? Mr. King's, right? His quadrilateral is a rectangle. You could ask the first one, does the quadrilateral have 4 corners? that are right angles. Does the quad have 4 right angles? Technically, 3 is all you need because then your 4th is guaranteed. That's a good question. I mean, once you nail that one down, your choice is just between rectangles and squares. So your second question to know whether it's a square or not could be, are the diagonals perpendicular? In 2 questions, yes or no, yes and no in the right order, I've identified that you have a rectangle. So does the quadrilateral have 4 right angles? Yes. Squares are rectangles. Are the diagonals perpendicular? No. Rectangle. Put it down. Got it. Let's play this game together. This is a good in-class game to play. Just like a kind of guess the shape. And so with that in mind, thank you for watching this video, and thank you for sticking with this entire lesson on understanding the properties of quadrilaterals. Thank you for going through the video sequence on that and learning something. Hope to see you in the next videos as we talk lesson 3 and finish out, actually, that'll finish out this lovely book that we have here. I will see you later. Thank you so much. You are awesome, and take care.